It feels like there's a genuine attempt to reset something here. Remember, Michaela Cash is a former Industrial Relations Minister. She was big and hot and hard. Prime Minister sat there and done his CFMEU stuff multiple times. But it seems like, look, National Cabinet, for all of its ups and downs, the idea of everyone sitting around a table seems to be a good idea. It seems strange that in 2020 everyone goes, yeah, that is a really good idea. Look, we know next election they'll go back Labor, fine. Do you see potential in this or potential, nothingness in this?
Yeah, look, I do think there is a lot of potential, and I can see how the Prime Minister is now morphing into, at least temporarily, sort of a post-coronavirus, non-ideological Prime Minister. He's almost said as much. There's been a lot of comparisons made with the Accord of the 1980s and 1990s. They're probably overstated, I think. The Accord, of course, didn't include the business community. It was essentially an agreement between unions and the government, and it largely was based on personal relationships and trade-offs and things like that. There's not going to be any kind of trade-offs. There's no sort of award simplification, union amalgamation, flexibility in the system in return for getting Medicare or superannuation or an increased investment in skills and training. We're not seeing that kind of a compact. A different kind of compact is in the making, though. And so I think there's a lot of possibility here around some areas that the Prime Minister outlined today around the same kind of issues. Award simplification, enterprise bargaining is essentially bust, and he wants to go back to the Paul Keating type model, which was very effective for a long period of time until it was changed by the Rudd-Gillard government, and we can't go through all those details now. But there's possibility here. But and I want to take my hat off again to Sally McManus. I think she's been quite open. She's shown that she can work with the government, she can be cooperative, and that is a good thing. And the business community seem to be on board as well, and other key stakeholders. But quite frankly, I was shocked. Maybe not too shocked, but I was still nevertheless surprised, is probably a better word, to hear what the Labor Party said in response to this today. And Richard Marles actually said that the Prime Minister talking about industrial relations would put a chill down the spine of any worker. Now, that is not the kind of approach the opposition needs to take right now. So they've been dealt out of it. They've essentially dealt themselves out of it because they don't really want to be a part of it. So there is opportunities here. There's possibility. There's promise. Let's hope that, as the Prime Minister says, both sides, unions and government and also business, can give up some things to come up with a kind of a new agreement that in the end is going to be good for everybody, that could lead to more jobs, better productivity and growth as well.
Mark Latham, do you have much faith in this process?
No, not at all. The news today that the Industrial Relations Minister's chairing 5 working parties and hoping to get cooperation from Socialist Sally McManus is no news at all. In that the union movement since the time of Bill Kelly in the 1980s has moved dramatically to the left. They believe in divisive identity politics, re-regulating the economy, doing all the things in the IR system that would be opposite to economic growth and growing jobs. So I don't think there's much hope of improvement there. And, really the other thing about the union movement is they're a much smaller proportion of the Australian economy than they were in the 1980s. The vast majority of private sector employees in Australia are non-unionised. And how do you negotiate with them? Really, when you're negotiating with the unions to try and get the tiny proportion of unionists in Australia, when you're negotiating with organised unions and people like Sally McManus, what Morrison's hoping here is that somehow we can get a settlement that buys off the opposition of the Labor Party in Parliament, and everyone can cheer this through the Senate, whatever it's going to be. So, no, I found the speech today very disappointing. The union stuff is just not going to happen. The training issues, while worthwhile, are a very low-order priority compared to what's really problematic in the training of young people in this country. Most of the problems are in the school system, not post-school. And Morrison today had a chance to really set a big economic reform vision and direction for Australia, including telling the states to reopen their economies and tear down their borders. And instead of that, what he announced today, there's not a job in it, Paul, this side of Christmas. I mean, the crisis is about jobs, and he didn't announce anything for a single new job this side of Christmas.